Okay, sorry for the delay. We'll call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item would be adoption of the agenda.
Move. Second.
Adoption, all those in favor? Motion's carried. We have two presentations. First of all, we have Mike Sikorsky here for the transit plan. So Mike, if you take the floor and give us the update. We did get your PowerPoint, thank you, ahead of time, so we're all ready to go.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you. Not sure which one you guys prefer to look at, but I'll try and reference both of them here. So this is a BC Transit presentation, and they were unfortunately unable to make it up today, and I'm delivering it on their behalf, so I'll do my best to deliver and answer any questions you may have. So the purpose is kind of twofold. We'll go over some of the service changes that are happening in September, and also we'll look at the infrastructure changes associated with that, primarily the new downtown Comox Exchange. The outline is that we'll go into some of the background of where these changes came from, some of the public engagement that we've done, and obviously show off the location of the new exchange and talk about that. So as a background, these service changes were approved by the CBRD board last summer. The big feature of the expansion that we got approved was this frequent transit network. So it's a higher frequency of transit along a main corridor. In addition to that, there's some realignment of the existing and some new routes, what we call kind of local routes, which will tie into that frequent transit network. So the slide here shows we did some public engagement in December, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And we've done a lot of work with town of Comox staff along the way throughout the development of these service changes. And then once we've gotten the implementation details, looking at the exchanges, looking at bus stops, we've been working very closely with your staff, including both the Shelleys and Marvin, to make sure that we're doing things that are driving with your interests as well. Other background is mostly just stuff that is in existing transportation plans and transit plans. So these service changes were developed with that information in hand. You see the transit plans mentioned there, but also the OCPs that each of the municipalities have, the transportation plans, including Comox's transportation study. Those were referenced to develop these service changes. With respect to the Comox transportation study, some of the things that are in that study that are part of the service change, or that we're addressing with the service change, including reducing the travel time, more direct routing, more convenience, and then the central Comox exchange as well. So the public engagement involved an online survey and a number of open houses, and this was all conducted back in December. The total number of participants was 280 for that engagement. We've also reached out to the Comox BIA. I made a presentation to them specifically on the exchange, and we did talk a little bit about the route changes as well. We've also talked to them all, ownership as well, about the exchange, and both groups were very, very supportive of where we've suggested to put that new exchange. So now we'll get into the service changes that are happening. This will help provide context for that new exchange. So this route map here, you can all see it okay. This is showing the frequent transit network, and this was done through an engineering study, and then in consultation with the municipal staff, where they reviewed a number of different options for what the high frequency corridor would be. And you can see that it links the South Courtenay area, like Anfield Center down here, Driftwood Mall, up through into downtown along Fitzgerald. I'm not sure if my laser pointer is working very well, but I'll try to just describe it. And then from downtown Courtenay, it follows Ryan Road up to the College Hospital area, and then along Warwick Guthrie, down Anderton, and along Comox Ave to the Comox Mall here. Some of this is familiar to you because it's part of the number 34 C2C Express route. We've just extended it from downtown Courtenay all the way down to the south end of Courtenay. But the other big change between the 34 and this new number 1 FTN route is the frequency is a lot more, the span of service is a lot more, and we're not doing limited stops. So the number 34 only stops at certain bus stops, whereas this will stop at all of them. Oh, sorry. The other piece here is the public consultation. So this was very well received by the public when we went out to them in December. They've been asking for higher frequency for a long time and more direct routes for a long time, so they were very happy to see that this was part of the plan. Locally in the town of Comox, we've restructured the routing, and you'll see the number 3 here. This is very similar to what the old number 3 and 4 did through Comox. Those routes did the same route but in different directions. So this is kind of capturing a lot of, pretty much all of that local routing through the town center here. And that's the orange route. The number 4 is a route designed essentially to get people from Comox into the kind of Driftwood Mall, Central Courtenay area along Dyke Road. Both those number 3 and 4 routes connect with that frequent transit network, which you can also see in the map. There's a number of places where they can connect, but primarily they will be connecting at the exchange. They can also connect along various points such as Anderton and Knoll. There's a bit of a connection between the 3 and the number 1, and then along Comox Ave, there's a few opportunities between the 3, the 4, and the 1 to connect there. But primarily these connections will be happening at the exchange. The feedback we received on these local routing was also positive. The biggest thing we were hearing is that people wanted to make sure that they could connect between those routes. So it was important that they could connect from a 3 to a number 1, for example. If they lived in an area of town where they can get 3 but not the 1, they wanted to be able to make sure those timing connections worked between those 2 routes. The other thing we heard was what we hear with all bus routes is that people want more frequency, more coverage, and more service span. So those will be things that we can look at rolling out in the future as we get more funding, hopefully from the board. We can look at increasing the length of service during the day. We can add trips at peak times. So those are things we would look at in the kind of more medium to long term. So with that, we can get into the exchange. So this shows you a bit of an aerial view of the options that we looked at for the exchange. There was a number of options. A transportation consultant, Watt Consulting, who used to be Boulevard Consulting, and they're the author of the transportation study that's here in town of Comox. So they're very familiar with Comox, and they did the study looking at the exchange locations. Reviewed them, based on a number of factors, road geometry, pedestrian amenities, traffic, things like that. And subsequently, we worked very closely with town Comox staff, and the recommended option out of all that work was 1B, which is hopefully shown here, and that's on the mall side of Port Augusta, just by Comox Ave. The big reason that area was chosen, it has good curb and passenger amenity potential, and it also is very close to Comox Ave, and that's where a lot of the bus riders and people that are going to use the bus are wanting to be close to. They want to be able to get to some of the shops along Comox Ave, or they want to get down to the marina or wherever they're going. So it's a very central, key proximity to a lot of things for passengers. And as I mentioned, we did take this out to the VIA here and also the new mall owners and talked about them. They're both very supportive of the location. And these are just a couple of street view images. So you can see, I hope my laser pointer shows that this is kind of where we're talking about the exchange. There's a few I think there's 5 or 6 parking stalls there that would need to be removed, and that's where the buses would be. For now, there would just be 2 bus bays there. For September's improvements, we would just be needing bus stops there, but ultimately we'd be looking at maybe shelters and bike racks and other amenities such as that in the future. Timelines on the service changes are up here. So this, a lot of this presentation will also be part of the presentation to the board in March to make sure that they're still supportive of the changes that we're making. We've had a little bit more detail since they saw this in July last year. We've done the public consultation, so we're reporting back on that. We're also doing a mail out to residences and businesses that live along sections of the routing that didn't have a route before. So if there wasn't a bus going down the road before and now there is, we're sending them a letter just to let them know that this is coming and see if they have any questions, concerns. We'll get some feedback from that and be bringing that back to this council, as well as we're doing something similar in Courtenay, and just making sure that you're aware of what we heard from them, and making sure that you're supportive of these changes to the routes, these new roads and whatnot. And then after that, we're digging deep into the schedule and getting the rider's guides all tidied up and ready to go, making sure the bus stops are in place through the summer, and obviously a lot of communication around the service changes to the public through the summer, with a target. I believe it's now September 1st is the service implementation date that we're probably working with. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions this council may have.
Thank you, Michael. Questions? Councillor Swift.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. I mean, overall, it was great. I think this is something our citizens have been wanting, and especially the route past the stair center.
Yes. Well, we heard that one for sure.
Yeah. Having said that, I'm concerned about the choice of the exchange, and I'm wondering if there's any possibility, I mean, looking at that map and seeing, it's an obvious choice, the 1B, but my thinking would put it at option 3, simply because there's not much that goes on there, and it wouldn't be taking away the parking from the center of town. And I appreciate that you've spoken with Mall and the BIA. I'm wondering if the BIA realizes that the impact is going to be the loss of 9 parking spaces.
Yeah, we did identify the parking implications for this exchange, which is only, I think, 5 or 6. There are some other bus stops that will result in loss of parking elsewhere, but at the time that we met with the BIA, it was just dealing with this exchange. With respect to option 3, there was some concerns there around the road geometry and sight lines around that corner, and having buses kind of jockeying into the exchange while cars are swinging around. And then the other big factor was the bus passengers. You're kind of the backside of the mall. You're not as close to the Comox Ave businesses, and it didn't facilitate the connections between the other local routes as well. For example, the number 4 starts at the bus stop on, so the 3 and the 4 to kind of start and end at the bus stop that's on Comox Ave in front of the mall. And so those people could get off at that stop and just walk around the corner to this exchange rather than having to walk kind of up to their side of the block there. So those are some of the considerations on why we picked option 1B.
So it's picked. Is that what I hear?
That's staff recommendation for sure.
You heard my thoughts on it.
But on the plus side, you do gain 2 spots on Comox Ave because the other stop would be needed.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct. On the other side of the street from the mall, there's an existing bus shelter and bus stop there that would no longer be required, so that would free up 2 or 3 parking spaces on Comox Ave.
Yeah. But overall, the loss is still going to be 9.
Overall, yeah, there's probably a net loss of parking in the kind of whole area. Our hope is that people are going to start using transit more often and not bring those cars downtown.
Yes, hopefully more people on buses will be a positive thing for the community. Councillor Hutt.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. One of the things that was brought up at the BIA meeting that you attended to
Yep.
was the grocery store was saying that they're having some issues with the way the schedule is right now, getting young people into work in the morning or getting them, out of there. So is the scheduling, maybe that's just a little too, minute of a detail right now, but are you looking at that, at having the scheduling that will allow younger people to get into work in the morning?
Scheduling is right in front of us. We're up against that now, and we definitely took that feedback from the BIA. They're trying to look for strategies to deal with that through the scheduling work that's unfolding right now. It's tough to meet some of those shift times that are really late and really early, and for example, the grocery store has some of those shifts where they're done work at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, and in this community, unfortunately, the service is not as much as Vancouver's and Victoria's, where they have that kind of sort of late evening service. But we are definitely going to look at how and if we can address that concern. And if not now, then it's still on our radar for future expansions.
Yeah,
trying to get
as
later
long as
service.
you keep it under radar.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Sorry, on this side, was there any questions, comments?
I had one quick question, please. I've had a couple residents concerned that the service doesn't go far enough along Guthrie and in that surrounding area. Is there a plan in the future about that, or was that raised before?
So, like towards Brooklyn Elementary, or between
Between
like Highland and
down
Anderton?
towards Lazo, the area.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, we have heard some feedback from some of those neighborhoods. I think one of them told Butchers or something like that. Is that an area?
Yeah, that was
Yeah, so we've definitely heard a little bit about that. Keeping up with the laser here, but just kind of around here, there's some newer development that's happened over the past few years down there. There's starting to be some more density and interest in transit. And at this point, there isn't any change that will happen for them, but that's another one that's on our radar. And when it reaches a kind of tipping point with enough density, that's when it starts to become viable to direct transit down to those areas. We've got to make sure there's enough people down there that will be able to use it.
So need to tell them it's on the radar.
It's on the radar, yeah. I think that was one of our medium-term objectives out of the Transit Future Plan. Once the density's going to pick up a bit more.
One of the things we identified in our OCP in 2011 was having sufficient density at certain nodes, so many 14 units per hectare or something like that. Our planner would speak to that. And so that's where you're going to hopefully see, if there's more downtown densification, that's what will support the expanded network. And when you have largely single-family land base here, single-family dwellings, it's hard to meet everyone's needs.
Of course.
The one concern I have is, why is this taking so long? But I understand it's a process with the board, it's with transit. I mean, we identified this in 2011, and then of course the regional district 2014. And here we are, 2018, and it's finally coming to fruition. I know the C2C thing I had for a while. On the C2C, was there a good take-up on that? I guess that was one of the questions I had.
Not as good as we were hoping,
Yeah.
and I think that's definitely one of the things that's lending to this number one FTN route. Is one of the things we heard is the limited stop nature of that 34 was a real turnoff for people. Only going to half the bus stops really cuts out half the population along that corridor. They had pretty good frequency, but it was very short spans of day, like a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, and so you're again limiting the amount of people that would take it. So we did get okay ridership on that one, but we're hoping that with these changes where we're increasing the frequency throughout the day, and we're stopping at all the bus stops and trying to just make it more convenient for people. We're pretty positive that this will result in good take-up and good ridership.
Yeah, and the balancing act is you try to create an express route with fewer stops, so it goes faster.
Yeah.
But then you're not serving.
Yeah, that was the experiment, is trying to make that trip quicker by not stopping in all stops, but didn't seem to work out here.
Councilor Kennedy?
Just a comment. I'd like to acknowledge your group for public input. And there's been public input, there's been business input, there's been mall input, and it's never going to be perfect, but certainly your organization couldn't be accused of not having taken a serious stab at getting information from all parties, and I commend you for that.
Yeah, and town staff were key to that, and making sure that we were reaching out to the right groups, so appreciate their input on this.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. So at this juncture, we should probably just receive the report that the Deputy Clerk Administrator provided. Received then, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Any questions under the staff report on that? Largely covers what's already been covered here today. A little more detail on the parking issue. So seeing no further discussion on that, we'll move on to what you've all been waiting for. The new budget with our new, relatively new Director of Finance. So the floor is yours, sir.
Worship, can you clarify the difference between relatively new and new?
It's kind of like your wrist. Is that a new break or a relatively new break? Set him up by knocking it out.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. So before you've been given the handout, it's an updated handout of what was circulated on Friday. There were a few changes, a couple additions into that special project and capital preliminary budget. And I just want to take you through with an overview of the capital plan so we know what we're working with. And this fits into the overall budget, which we're going to address in the timetable. We have another committee of the whole in a couple of weeks that will give you an update of anything that comes out of this meeting, and other things that might come forward from staff will be updated at that meeting. And then at the end of March, we should have the Schedule A. The Schedule A is that one page that gives you your revenue, your operating expenses, and these capital projects down to one page. And we are working within the 2.43% tax increase. This was set out a year ago in the 5-year plan for this year, the second year of the 5-year plan. Businesses in that plan were looking at 1% less, so they were looking at 1.4% increase on that side. But we're going to leave that aside so we can look at what we're doing in 2018 and forward. And so what you were given, first page, just an update to the memo. The last page had some grand totals. A year ago, when we did a 5-year plan, we were looking at a 5-year spending program in capital of $25.6 million, and that's on this white single page here, which is the first page. In this 5-year financial plan, we're looking at about a $21 million. These things fluctuate. I can explain some of those differences to you if there's questions as to why the numbers change. But anyway, we'll come back to that. And then as we go forward, the first page, is there any questions on the overall spending of capital? Is there thoughts or concerns, or we can go in?
So obviously in the previous 5-year plan, we were averaging about $5 million in capital.
Yes.
Of course, 2017 was a pretty intensive year. And then over the next 5 years, closer to $4 million this year.
It dropped, yeah, it's very cyclical. If you look at the graphs of capital going back over 4 or 5 years, you'll just see, the graphs go up and down depending on what the need of replacement. Most of the capital program is replacing infrastructure. So we're replacing vehicles, replacing road surface replacement, I think is the language, and so forth, parks and so forth is replacement items.
So would you, I guess forecasting, it's hard to go beyond 5 years, but would you see a trend where that's evening out as opposed to it jumps up and down?
And yes, and to answer that, we have, FCM has given us that 80% grant funding to work with an asset management program, and we're well underway. In fact, we're kind of leading urban systems. I guess there's a number of municipalities designing the dashboards and the information that will be shared for council as well as management as we drill into any of the assets we're replacing. We would be able to drill into their dashboard. It will give us a 20-year outlook. So we're moving. It's a very exciting project, the asset management program, but that will not be ready for this budget cycle. It will be more towards the 1st October of 2018.
Right. I guess the other variable would depend on, as federal and provincial infrastructure programs come along and opportunities are presented for the Marina Promenade.
Exactly, to allow maybe even new growth capital to come on because of the grant funding. So I should mention, everything that you see here has been sent off to a researcher, grant writer, pretty well known on the NDC actually for securing funds. And so she's reviewing this now. I think she had a little question that went out to all the departments asking them for more information. Where is it green? Where is it this? And where is it that? And there's over 100 grant opportunities out there, and she'll mine it for grants. That work is still coming in to help support this spending here. So the first page, special projects. This is something that's new. You typically have your operating budget, and then you have your capital budget. We've introduced this new middle area. It's called special project. It is operating. It's part of your operating budget. And maybe I should back up to define what is a capital budget. A capital budget are those tangible capital assets and for which the town has an inventory, a register, an inventory that we've kept since before 1940. We can pull it out and go back to everything that you've purchased, everything you've disposed. It's just a huge long register. If it's on that inventory, it's a capital. If it's not, it's operating budget. And so one other small detail with the capital budget, we don't actually expense it, those costs. We depreciate over a number of years, so it's expensed slowly over the useful life of that asset. But the easier way to remember tangible capital assets is your capital, and it's anything that we have on an inventory sheet that is capital. So these special projects would be studies, design studies, condition assessments, substantial repairs, some of the positions that don't quite make it to the TCA inventory sheet. And so we've pulled these out of operating. So the operating, when we get into the operating in subsequent meetings, you'll see it's just a nice normal 1 to 2% increase a year, because it's the same level of service, and that's your operating budget. And then I pull out of the operating these special projects to bring to your attention, so you can actually see these are in the operating. Before they would have just been sort of in the operating, you wouldn't have seen them. We're bringing them out to your attention if there's any service level changes, or so you can know what's a little bit special there. So just to explain the report further, at the top is a summary. And so the colored bands, the first band is the dark blue. That's general government, followed by protective services, which would be Gord, followed by development services, is Marvin's, and into transportation for Shelley, and then into parks, rec, and culture, combination of Al Fraser and Ted, and then back to Shelley Ashfield for water and sewer services. And these will be these particular ones will mostly be studies that are undergoing, condition assessments. For example, if we start off with the blue section, town hall condition assessment, that first one, that $50,000 was in last year's budget. It was to look in 2021 at the town hall itself, and there's a study involved looking at that, and so we just left that in the budget.
So I'm just looking at the very first line, general government, town hall, building maintenance, corporate, council, finance, and IT.
At the very top of the page.
Yes.
Right at the very top.
Yes.
And my thing on my computer is a different number, but it says 551, 130 over the 5-year plan. What is all of that?
Yeah, that's broken out now, that first line. And yes, this has been updated since what was sent out on Friday, so there has been some changes. That first line represents the first 10 items here. It's a sum of the first 10 items. So it's just summarized. So the first 10, general government being the first function of our municipality, the first 10 rows are summarized onto that first row. The way we report out is by function to the provincial government. So we report on a general government, protective services, development services, transportation, parks, rec, and culture. So that top summary is summarized by that normal reporting method. So things that are on the special projects in the first 10 lines include things such as the study of the town hall, the site, the potential for a replacement of a town hall or not. That's 2021, that study. Condition assessments. Where you see building maintenance department in here, that's Al Fraser. He typically does a condition assessment, and then followed by the subsequent year is the works that would be based on that condition assessment done in the previous year. We have things such as line number 4, wayfinding. There's some research and study in that. Elections are brought here for your attention just to get a sense of the costs of running an election. We have a sort of a limited space in the town hall for the finance and administration. There's a bit of an office floor plan proposal, so that's in there as well, a study for that. And that takes care of general government. And I think really as we look at this list, we should probably just pause and ask questions about what are some of these works that town is considering. Staff is here to enlighten anyone on that.
All right, well, maybe under general government, the council has questions under the blue items that are listed.
Yeah, I was concerned when we were doing this that we were putting, it appeared that we were putting money into IT and maintenance of the building, and we're talking about possibly replacing it at some time, so, but the way you've got it broke down, that appears not to be the case, so.
Yeah. I think just trying to explain that 551,000, the first 10 rows, where is the heaviest spending? I think that 2021, that whole site study of the condition of the town hall and the potential of what that study would look if there is a move. That's a big one.
And you've highlighted here in the column, second column, I guess, is new. You know,
Yeah.
9 and 10 are all new.
Yes.
Maybe you can just focus on what those
Sure. Those three new are all from me. That's from the finance department, finance and IT. The first one is the finance office. The finance office has a study of 5,000 that is, and actually I believe that should be new as well, correction, is to look at the floor plan. We're working in close quarters and it's pretty critical for the finance staff. What we're looking at is the ability to focus on complex accounting tasks. There's a lot of reconciliation gets pushed to them and they're sort of in a very tight quarters where any noise is affecting the workers. So some of the comments I've had, since we've started a slightly different technology, workers, some of the senior staff in finance are able to work remotely. And the comments to me are, what I can do in 2 hours is amazing.
Yeah.
Versus working in a very tight quarter where everyone breathes and you can feel that presence. So there are some ideas in the finance department, including moving the service out of the finance department, freeing up that space for an accounts payable filing, several other ideas in there, but it does require a bit of it's a tight quarter, so we need a little bit of a professional eye on that and suggest that some of these things be done. So that's part of 2008 plan, to clean that up. And then following...
Just on that,
Please.
when you say move out of there, where
We have a potential space in the basement of this building that would be ideal for the servers. It would reduce heat in the summertime and a lot of noise, so that would be gone and give us a whole space for filing. Right now, our accounts payable filing is in a very secure vault, which doesn't need that type of security. Our payroll files are in a different place, which now could be housed there. So there's a lot of things we can do to
Because the ambulance is moving up to the railway.
That's right, yeah. Right now, they're scheduled to be moving out at the end of March. I think there's some delays, but we're looking at the end of March. There's a site there for the servers to move over. That would be part of that move. Followed by the second year would actually be the refurbishment of the office according to the plan. So these are new items to be considered. These are just put to you as preliminary suggestions to council. The fiber optic, the next one, the accounting software and service. We've been, a couple of things are in there. We have payroll software that was written in the 1980s, and the back end hasn't been updated. Front end, the user interfaces are being updated, but it's drawing an awful lot. We have 3 people working on payroll. One of them, the deputy, is spending about 25% of her time backing up payroll. And basically it's bugs. It's just every time there's an update, our system goes down, and then we lose a day or 2 cleaning up the bugs and so forth. So this has been going on for a number of years, and there's an opportunity to replace out that payroll and to do something new. The company that provides that software, the payroll software, has agreed to help us find new payroll because they realize that they have a serious problem supporting payroll.
It's not Phoenix.
It's no
You got a good deal on it. What called your quest?
It's a known issue. This particular product has some significant issues, and there is an end of life cycle to everything. Something written in the 1980s is pretty old, and we need to get on with it. So we've been reviewing some payroll options in there. There are some other software improvements as well. Purchase order system, the way of improving control and spending. We don't currently have that working. Again, it's a very buggy software. It's a limited software. So that looks at some of the accounting procedures and replacing with automation some of the things we do in accounting. Item number 10, the fiber optic network. We right now, in a municipal network, it's a network. The capital project has it's a replacement program. You're replacing PCs and servers every 3 to 5 years. We currently don't quite replace as often as we should, and we'll see that in the capital project. But the other thing we have here is we have 4 distinctive networks. So domain controllers, town hall, at rec center, at public works. We basically have 4, and fire department, 4 different networks. Each one has their own phone system, and it's very hard to build a lot of efficiencies when you're running different networks. So a fiber optic backbone connects us all as one network, and then the whole approach to technology changes. We can look more at server-centric computing, which is reducing the number of PCs on the network. Right now we spend about 70% of our operating budget just fixing PCs all over the place. And it would be nice to sort of remove that from the IT budget and look at a different technology. It's called thin client computing. So in order to do all these wonderful things, or to put in one phone system that we all share, you need to look at the network backbone. And the network backbone can be upgraded to fiber optics. The plan that's put in here is a leased option from TELUS. Up until this year, TELUS has not offered this to anyone in the town, but this year there's a small setup fee. They need to cut some concrete and run some fiber optics into the buildings. They'll terminate it at the buildings, and then we can lease fiber optics through TELUS in the first 5 years, with the plans to build our own fiber optic network as we work on roads and so forth over the next 10 to 15 years.
So is that with the 30,000 a year?
Yes, yeah, it's the fiber optic, the whole backbone of the network to replace it. I deferred it for a year just so that there'd be lots of time for council to think about it, and again in a year's time I'll bring it back with some more presentations to understand the benefits, so it's sort of a cost-benefit analysis, and then we can look at payback time for moving to that technology. So that's that. So those are the new items in the first 10. I'll open it to your worship. Do you want to go into another area?
Any other questions on the general government categories? Seeing none, I guess we can talk about fire. There's at least one new item in there, we'll show them. Community safety project.
Gordon, defer to you.
Sure, so I can speak on that. So last summer, the fire department was deployed provincially. We received a fair bit of revenue. We've looked at some areas where we can turn that revenue back into the community, and this is one of those spots where we would like to put $10,000 into our community smoke alarm program and our community emergency preparedness kit program that we've been running over the last few years. Both of those have been very successful, but they do cost some money. So for 20 years now, we've been giving out free smoke alarms in our community. In fact, we've given out three of them a day. But again, it costs money, so we thought we would take some of that provincial money and just roll it over and continue to make our community safer.
Great.
That's the new item. You want me to speak to the old item too?
The repair and restoration, is that just?
Yeah, so that's basically just numbers that came out of our 5-year plan from last year that were fire hall renovations over that 5-year capital plan. And Clive's now rolled them into the special project areas. So they've come out of our capital and gone here, but they were all dollars from last year.
Okay. Any questions on fire? Moving on to planning, there's some money for some studies and some work that's underway already.
I might just comment on line number 13 before Marvin you jump in. This basically all 3 items there in planning are studies. The first row is more internal operating procedures, bylaw type studies. When it says study and review, they're introspective. They're looking at our own bylaws. Then subdivision, it is our own, but it stands out because of the magnitude of dollars. And the Northeast Comarch Southwest Stormwater Management Plan is the big one right now, that Marvin, one of his big projects right now on his plate. But Marvin, you could speak into any of those.
Go ahead.
Sure. So the first one to highlight is under sort of our standard studies at the strategic planning session, there was mention of allowing for a OCP review or update. So that's been put in at 2020 with a budget allowance of $75,000. So that would be what we'll be looking at there is taking out outdated information, updating the statistics that we do have in the report. So it's not a redesign or anything else. The OCP, we've been implementing it, I think, very successfully. We haven't had any concerns from the community that it's outdated. But some of the stats and some of the trends analysis is outdated. Likewise, we've actually implemented a number of things that were in the OCP to be done. So we'd like to take those out to reflect sort of our current status. Then we would have some public consultation. And of course, second half, you start having public consultation, you start going out, you start running up significant fees.
Mark, before you leave that, what would you anticipate would be a normal lifespan of an OCP? I mean, you know, after you do all your updates, or you would have to go into a major.
Depends on the original quality of the OCP. So you can get anything from 2 years, i.e. you adopt it, you find out that one of the big problems with official community plans is it's looking forward and you can get into motherhood statements. So if you have a whole bunch of motherhood statements, but they're not really practical, very, very quick turnaround time. To redo on area like ours where the demand is such that you do the OCP and if there is an issue in the community that it's immediately addressed, easily get 10 to 15 years out of official community plan. Because it's constantly being refreshed and made valid. Because long-range goals, you're not going to really see any major implementation of them, or the trend analysis shouldn't significantly change for a good 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And then the other two items that are underway, I think, the subdivision bylaw review, that's, I think you presented to us on that at some point.
Yes, that's nearing completion. So staff have, there's been initial draft presented from the consultant. Staff have gone through it extensively in terms of track changes, proposed changes, and alternative wording, and we should have that back in the spring. And I would anticipate one small iteration before that coming forward to council.
Right, and the stormwater management plan, of course, we get regular updates on that, but that's also working towards the completion of phase 3. Other steps arising out of that?
Yes, there's the completion of phase 3. Then there's the next phase 3. We anticipate that coming forward shortly to council for receipt prior to going from McElhaney prior to going for public consultation. Then there will be an erosion and sediment control bylaw that has to be part of the implementation package, along with a runoff control bylaw, and we'll be amending the new standards and subdivision development bylaw. And there'll also be a financial component in terms of a local, I can never get it right, I think it's a local service or area service.
Local area service.
All right, anything else?
Could I just have a brief explanation for me, please, Marvin? Under the highlights again, and I'm going to read directly. It said 2019-2020 planning projects would see a return to standard bylaw updating. Is that just simply...
Means lower level projects. So things like we wanted already in our previous capital plans, there were things like updating our floodplain bylaw. Is it a significant bylaw in the town? Yes. But you're looking at cost of, I believe, anywhere between 10 to 20,000. The stormwater management bylaw, by contrast, much larger budget, larger time period, more staff intensive. Same with subdivision bylaw. It's a core bylaw that goes across a number of different departments. So you're also pulling in extensive time from Shelley and Al, as well as myself. So that's what, it's more of an order of magnitude issue.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it on the planning side, unless there's anything else. So, building maintenance department, there's a couple items there which I think are, one is saying, indicating new, 50,000 in 2020. So,
The building maintenance department is Al Fraser, he's not here to speak to it, but he has some major condition assessments on buildings for public works area.
Right.
So he'll look at those, and based on those condition assessments, the following year in the capital plan, will the works be done that need to be done according to the condition assessment. That wasn't in the 5-year plan last year, but he had targeted for 2020 would be the time for the condition assessment to be done.
Is this of the new buildings?
Yeah, this would be, the transportation is the public works now, so.
This would be more part of the asset management
program
of keeping those buildings up to date rather than our previous legacy of letting things run down and then trying to catch up.
That would fall into with number 25, there's the green and condition assessments,
Yep.
same year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the other is over to Shelley Osterfield. There's one new item, line number 20. And maybe before Shelley speaks to that, I can just give a bit of background. One of the analysis that was done in the budget was to look at the total hours, allotment of hours of laborers in the public works, and map it and match it up to all the maintenance work that has to be done. And as I was doing that reconciliation with the public work engineering, I ran out of hours. I hit road painting. I think I had 1 hour left. So there is a gap. There's a gap between the work that needs to be done and the number of labor hours there. That was even before we got to the capital budget. So it's sort of something that is an analysis, and it's something that we're not prepared to share with it all right now, but there is a bit of pressure on them for hours and the jobs that have to be done. So I think it's not Shelley's speak to the temporary laborers.
Yeah, I just think in line with that, basically, we knew we were kind of short labor, or specifically laborers, but staff to get things done. We felt like a few things were falling behind. And then when we did this upgrade with the software, we were, confirmed it. We have heavy capital projects, and along we still have, quite a bit of operation and maintenance on our existing infrastructure. We like to focus a little bit more on our I&I and try to get that down. That's a cost savings in the end. With the same with water leaks, there's quite a bit of development that happens as well. So that's another impact on our development, or on our department to put in the water sewer connections. So we're pretty much full tilt, and with holidays coming up, so the new temporary laborers are moving on maybe a 6-month contract that we can just kind of get caught up and kind of see how things go.
Go ahead.
So that, I was thinking of this back when we were talking about planning, and as we get busier in our planning department, is there any, I don't see any provisions in here for any staff labor increases, and it's fluid with planning because it changes, but as it gets busier, is there any plan to add staff to be able to maintain our levels of service?
I think that's something that we definitely would look at next year. This year is going to be, we have a 10-month planning tech position instead of a 4-month student position, and that is to backfill existing staff that are going to get pulled off their existing work and put onto the subdivision implementation of the subdivision bylaw and the stormwater management plan. We have experienced some we're increasing in processing times, and I assume we're going to, that will continue through this year. Really, that's about all we can expect out of our current capabilities, is trying to get these major projects in the ground without experiencing too much of a drop on our application processing, and then reassess where we're at. We wouldn't have time to bring somebody new in and train them. So yes, we're doing certain things like we're focusing, right now we've got 4 reports coming to the next council meeting, 4 items on the proposed public hearing in April. Trying to bring as much stuff forward before we get the stormwater management plan in. And things like fence inquiries on height are going from trying to provide a very high level of service with a good turnaround time, because they're property owners too. They will take time for us to respond because we're busy with the larger results.
I'm just hearing, as we get busier, I'm hearing more and more of it's taking longer, it's taking time to the developers is what they also worry about, and I'm hearing it more and more from them as we get busier and busier, so.
And you, under this proposal, you would hear it more. You would be just getting the tip of it a bit right now, because really what we have to do is, Northeast Comox has been there so long. Either we're going to direct all of our resources and get it out no matter what, or it will continue to sit there, same with the subdivision bylaw. They're just huge, large projects, and it means they're going to, right now, we're processing them as the number one priority.
Is there, I can appreciate that, but is there any ability to contract out some of these services?
I really would like to. It's the same thing when we look at doing the bylaws on things like the subdivision bylaw and the stormwater management plan bylaw. The amount of hours and the cost of the municipality on the subdivision bylaw compared to how much we spent for the consultant would probably double in terms of that timeline. And because what you get from consultants on something like a project like that is, what would you like in it? Where do you see the problems? Oh, and then what are the directions that you want? It's almost like a checking, everything has to come from staff because it's unique to the municipality and unique to the local circumstances. And then they just more or less say, okay, is this within good management practices or not? The private consulting planning firms really work on things like smaller community zoning bylaws and on developers' large applications, like Sage Hill or something like that. They don't have the in-house expertise to do bylaw and
So,
Well, I wasn't thinking of those projects, I was thinking of the developer comes to you with a subdivision project that's, I don't know, say, let's use the tap house as an example. Could that have been contracted out to go through the process of, or you're saying no?
the everyday stuff, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, the smaller projects.
Yeah.
Not something that you need to keep complete control and ownership of.
We have tried extensively 2 to 3 years ago in terms of contracting that out to newly graduated planners who are underemployed in the valley or people that are retired. People that are retired, that permanently retired, that newly graduated. If we got one and we spent the first 6 months training them up, they would be looking for permanent employment and we're gone in 8 months. So we were just spending more time training than we were getting out of those.
I wasn't thinking of training, I was just saying, here's the application. Could somebody look at it and go, yes, yes, yes? And that's all.
We don't have personnel that we can contract with. The existing firms are only around here, are only now getting planners on site. McElhaney Urban Systems, and they are specifically for large concept designs on residential neighborhoods, not daily activities. So there's just not the resources.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor, I think you were.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking exactly what Kevin was thinking.
That's scary.
Well, you have been sitting next to it.
That's why we wrote it on.
Go ahead, Marvin, go ahead.
And we will also run into that issue with building inspection. We're at one person, and we've noticed in past years too, even small spikes. What happens is there's about 2 or 3 retired building inspectors that all departments are using for relief. When the building cycle goes up, everybody wants them on extended hours. So we start losing the ability for that relief. Right now, we're still too good on that in terms of being able to bring somebody in and get busy. But that diminishes the longer the building cycle.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on planning? I think we've covered those. Oh, sorry, we were back to temporary laborers. Any questions on that? Any other questions? That you anticipate just being a one-off then?
We're hoping.
You're hoping.
Thought we would just assess it once we kind of get through the first 6 months, see how effective it was, if we got caught up, where we're at with our workload, if we feel that we want to, maybe do it every summer or second summer, but just kind of see how first. So right now, we just have it for the first year, and then we'll probably come back to council.
So when the director of finance referred to things like line painting, I noticed this year we didn't do as much of that, at least my perception. Is that something that's done every year, or is it just fell by the wayside because we didn't have people to do it?
Yeah, we do carry a line painting operational budget. That's contracted out.
Right.
So, but it still takes some staff time to assist it and mark it out and work with the contractors. We probably end up looking with our road resurfacing, like just our patching. We didn't use much of that at all. It was really hard to coordinate with contractors as well and get things going. So we're kind of at, small municipality. We have the one crew where we deal with the water, sewer, transportation, all of it. So we only have one crew. So when you get pulled away from one job to the next, some things kind of get. And we've been kind of, pushing along, but, a few things have been falling off that we're thinking if we had a couple more laborers, we can almost maybe have enough that we can have 2 crews going and get caught up that way. So.
And would that be, like you say, seasonal, more than, what would you say, 6 months? Would that be sort of through the April to October timeframe? And would that be something that summer students would be doing, or is it more training?
We were looking at summer students, but because of the amount of work that we do, it's a little bit more training, a little bit more responsibility. So, safety conscious.
Because we obviously have those within the Parks Department, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, the Public Works Department hasn't had a summer student or any additional employees.
Well, that's something that you would consider.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on Public Works? Or I guess further down to the other ones that are referenced under the Parks, Recreation, Culture?
Right, for Al's, item number 23, Parks Design Studies. These studies include things such as Lazo Greenway, Mac Lang, Pickleball, a number of other studies that he's engaged in. And then in the capital, you'll see the budget again for the follow-through with the work.
Right. Okay. I guess a similar issue on staffing is at the rec center. That's here, of course, you can comment on those items, design studies, fitness studio, attendant hours, and so on.
So number 26 is a community center site master plan. The idea of enhancing the community use and efficiency of the land around the community center. So the plan in the broad strokes would look at 3 areas. One, it would look at how we can create more engagement and use of the land by users. So what can we put on or move to the field that's beside the community center for our community to use? The second would be to look at how our customers are accessing the building and how our community members are moving through the property and making sure that's efficient and safe for everyone. And then third would be, while we're looking at possible redesign of these amenities and infrastructure, what would a future building footprint look like with possible expansion, so that we're not building or where in the future the community center might be. So those would be the 3 things we would look at in a site master plan.
So would that be a public survey looking at, I was thinking of when you mentioned looking at uses for the field next to the
Absolutely,
rec
there'd be
centre,
a
that would be a
high component of public consultation for this. Absolutely.
great, yeah, I mean, I've heard dog park, but I'm sure the people around about maybe be so keen. But,
Sorry, what did you say?
and the dog park is often floating around,
Where?
well, wherever it could go.
Oh, I see. I thought you were looking at
Right by house, I think is what she said. So I can officially register my complaint now.
It might be floating around in the bay, perhaps.
So I'm not trying to prejudice how the community engagement might look, but one idea would be looking at the play structure where it is right now. Can we find a safer place for it? Can we move it onto the field, right? And then finding ways to create safe access for everyone coming to the community center to get to where that play structure is. And then what can we put in that play structure? Well, maybe it could be more parking, right, to make that more efficient. So all of these things would be linked in a way to create a more efficient design and use of the land.
Does the heat system under the park play any role in what can go there?
Yes, that'd be one of the main things that the study would be looking at, is what can go over top of it. I've talked briefly to Al, and he thinks that there are some possibilities, but we want to know for sure, absolutely.
Right.
How deep is that? Like, so you couldn't build a structure on there. I can see you relocating the parking lot to that and then doing something with the existing parking lot, but do you know, is it 20 feet? Is it 10 feet under the ground? Does anybody remember
The
that?
answer to that.
It wouldn't be any deeper than 10 feet.
Okay. So it'd still be too shallow to
Yeah.
build anything.
Would that also look at the possibility of, artificial turf type field instead of the actual grass that's there? I mean, that field gets used, but not to its maximum potential, I should say. So at various points that's been raised as
All
well.
season track or something.
Well, I don't know if you put a track there, but you could put more of an all-purpose field that can be used all year round. That would be something that would
I
be.
think everything's on the table. The idea would be, how can the community best use that space?
T-ball capital of Canada for a while.
It is.
and then-
Yeah.
No, not anymore. No
Well, it
one
was.
uses it anymore.
It doesn't, yeah.
Put the TV thing and no one goes in.
All right.
So
Go ahead.
the moving of the play equipment sounds like a good idea. I've seen mothers with babies, children under their arms running over the road. You need to get to the washroom facilities, and so having it more connected with the centre would make sense for the kids.
Well, it was at one time until we built the gymnastics facility, then we had to move it, right? That's what it was, but, yeah. Anyway, I'm sure we'll find a spot for it at some point. Put it on the roof.
We could put that basketball court, but James's daughter was for people.
All right, anything else
That
on?
roof is, when you're on the upper floor and you're looking over the roof, I was just thinking on Monday, there's some big expanses there of, I guess it's hard to use rooftops because of the effect on keeping them so that they don't get the rain in. Is that, it just seems that we've got a lot of flat roof, and I was just looking over the expanse of it as I came out of yoga on Monday, and I thought, roof garden potential there.
I think that's a question better asked to Al. I just couldn't comment.
Well,
If people get back together, we could.
We'll look
stick on top
at
of
things
it.
creatively with all those things in mind.
Your Worship, just to mention, before Ted speaks to the fitness studio attendant hours, item 15 and item 20 both have a component for increased labor costs. Item 15 has, Marvin spoke of a 10-month position versus the summer student. That incremental cost is included in the 145. And then laborers on item number 20 is incremental. It's just a one-time. We just put it in 1 year. We didn't project it out over the 5 years because the idea is the same level of service. We want to keep things to the same level of service. We're not asking you to, at this point, to increase the level of service over the 5 year. That's another discussion. But when we come to item number 28, we did put that in over 5 years. And it's a little different at the rec center because it's a business and generating 1.6 million, something over there. Sometimes you have to do certain costs in order to guarantee that income flow coming in. So in Ted's case, you see labor going over 5 years. So Ted, speak to that.
Yeah, that was actually, I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, whenever we talk about budgets and things like that, and dealing with the community members that we talk to or hear from, it's all around level of service, right? And what do they want? How much are they willing to pay for it? And, Of course, they don't want to pay more for it, but they want more service. But I would say that it's good to highlight any of these things that are either trying to maintain a level of service or, in this case, perhaps looking at an increased level of service to meet the demand.
So my suggestion here for item 28 is an increase to the weekly fitness studio attendant hours. Currently, our attendant is working 20 hours a week, and I propose an increase of 13 hours per week. The idea of raising our service level to our customers by having an attendant in the building. The additional 13 hours will give us 7-day-a-week supervision in the room. It will create a more consistent schedule for our students who require a fitness attendant to be in the center while they're working out. And I think it's just an expectation with fitness studios to have an attendant on site. And so by increasing the hours, and by hiring another person for 13 hours, we'll have a consistent schedule 7 days a week. And if you look at the forecasted amounts for 2018, that's $6,000, and then 2019 jumps to 18. I've calculated out the amount for this year starting in September. So that's why it's for $6,000.
Okay. Any questions on that? I assume that has absolutely nothing to do with the CAO being there on a more regular basis.
Needs all the help he can get.
Feel free to draw it in if you want.
All right. We'll put him to work there. Okay, so water and sewer at the end. Maybe Clive, if you want to comment on those.
So if there's any questions on the water and sewer, there's a design studies, I believe, for water and sewer funds.
So item number 29, it says new, it was in the plan last year. This is the engineering design of water main upgrades that are happening with respect to road resurfacing. So make sure we upgrade all the water. This is in one particular location, it's Noel Avenue. So we had it at 35,000 in our last year plan, and we just increased it to 45. Is what happened.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there any concern, maybe you can answer this, about the passage, the new conveyance to the sewer on Brent Road, and which roadworks we should undertake safely until that's determined?
Oh, I see, in terms of...
We can't, as the capital plan points out, there's some work we're doing on Torrance that I think we've been holding off since 2012 or 2013. We just can't hold off anymore. The road's falling apart. And you know yourself, we're probably 2+ years away from a decision. 2. I mean,
so by the time we come around to doing that, roading up.
We said if you're going to do anything, make sure you do it before we resurfaced Beaufort. Right now, this works, possibly at risk if they choose a path where they think we should put a pump station in Marine Park or anything like that. I mean, we've tried to be as practical as we can in holding off on some of this stuff, but yeah, there's a limit.
I agree. Noel seems like it could be one that's nice straight road. Yeah, anyway.
Well, if they do Knoll, that'll be great, because it's almost due for resurfacing fairly soon, isn't it?
Yeah, we have that in our plan for 2020.
So advocate for Knoll.
No problem.
Make them pay for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, yeah, the thing about that is though, that plan is completely in flux. I mean, it could be anything at this point.
We'll see. All right, anything else to add on the...
I think that's special projects operating, and this helps, this introduces the capital before we start. There's a 1-page and a 4-page. I'll just explain the 4-page, and then at the end we'll return to the 1-page. There's a 1-page on a letter size 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But when staff are building a 5-year plan, every time they look at a line, they look at all 5 years at once. And so they budget year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all at the same time. And that's why it's a 4-page plan. It shows all 5 years, 141 items on the 5-year capital plan. What the one page is, it just takes a look at the 61 projects that are occurring in 2018. So it might be efficient to look up, ask questions on the 5-year plan from the 4 pages, but just the 61 items are on the one page. And I think the first one it starts off with is some building. Item number 1 in the capital building maintenance department, there's a carryover from 2017 to complete some work at the town heat pumps were not completed. And some, I think the painting was done, but there's some work here at the chambers that needed to be completed this year. The Infotech item is new. That would be coming from my area, from the finance department and IT. And there's a replacement program. It's not official for the town where we have about 80 computers on the network. Every 3 years they're being replaced, 3 to 4 years they're being replaced. We've discovered that the fire department, all your new computers were actually hand-me-down computers. They're several generations old. And when I go over there to work on Gord's computer and it doesn't work, he says it works fine. I say, no, it doesn't work. It's not working.
It was new 4 years ago.
So I think what we're doing is just doing a bit of a maybe catch-up, but there is a recurring replacement of computers on the network. There's also some preparation for fiber optics when we replace out switches to ensure that they're going to be with the fiber optic ports, so that as we move into that in the future, we're putting replacements in that are suitable for the next stage of the network. So it's basically a replacement program. A heavy focus on the fire department, and that's basically what's in there. And I have a detailed inventory. Everything, could staff prepare every item on here, there's a cover sheet. It's like a mini business case for every item. And so for mine, for the computer, it just works out to be a stream of pages itemizing for every building location what is being replaced over 5 years and when it's replaced. And so the first year is the $155,000, and the replacement continues over 5 years.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need to go through all 61, but there may be ones that council would like to ask questions about.
Sure.
Unless there's other ones you want to highlight.
I think the protective services, there's a lot of new in in the fire department, and that is using the money from the BC wildfires to cover those costs, similar as it was on the special projects.
It's interesting when you show the asset replacement column, which we've never seen before in our budgets, is well over half of them are in that category.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sustaining our infrastructure, and that would be our normal idea. Is we just want to replace and maintain, same service level, and that speaks to this.
I'm sure that you could show out of the 5.3 million what the dollar figure for the replacement is.
Yes, I don't have the subtotal here, but in the update in 2 weeks, I'll bring that subtotal.
Okay.
We can
And that's a good thing.
look at the percentages.
Convey to the public, right?
Exactly. I'll make a note of that.
Yep.
The Lazo Greenway parkland purchase, because I thought that the land had been given as part of the park allowance with the development. Do we have to buy a piece of it to make it work?
Yeah. It's in excess of the 5% subdivision contribution, and you'll see that report come before you next week. So that is what the rest is going to cost based on assessed value.
Yes.
It's actually, we're getting a quarter of it. Around $50,000, $60,000 is the 5% parkland dedication. So this is the corner, right at the corner of Lazo and Lazo, when it goes to the north. So we have a huge frontage, and it's not that big of a parcel. So there's about 150,000 worth of additional land that then has to be purchased in the 12 year.
I noticed on here we're doing several sidewalk projects over the next few years. Are we still using gas tax money for those?
Anywhere there's a green, there's a green component in it with sidewalks, new sidewalks, or if there's when you were just speaking with the sidewalks, or I'm thinking of line painting and all that type of thing for bicycles. We're using gas tax money.
And if we go to the sidewalk Rodello to Ellis, that comes up as something the ladies wanted add-on, is that also gas tax? And there's 900,000 in 2020, we have enough money. That is line number 62. It's just, it comes up later as something that's requested, and I see it's on the, and I'm just wondering if we have enough gas tax to do all that, or when we run out.
Yeah, no, the gas tax money, if there's a balance of using gas tax money based on the balances we have, but we try to apply as much as we can on an ongoing basis. There's not a plan to store it up. We want to use that money as it comes in. We spend it $600,000 a year. I'm not sure exactly the number, but we're over $600,000 a year.
Couldn't remember, okay.
I think on that one, it's important to recognize that until we get the design work done, we really won't know what we're looking at for project cost. Design and tenders, actually, but at least design will have a better sense, because there are going to be some expensive aspects of that sidewalk.
And that's this year, the design work.
Yes, right, Shelley?
Comox Avenue is 2019 construction.
Oh, sorry.
So next year.
Next year.
Just out of curiosity, sure.
Okay. Well, I was just going to ask you about Port Augusta paving in front of Lauren. We finally given up on Lauren.
Yeah, that's another one, because the latest I think we heard is they were still shopping for an architect. Have you heard any more?
I think Sean Vincent's free.
He's not an architect.
Well, he isn't. Yeah, well, he wanted to be.
Yeah, no, that definitely needs to be done.
It's pretty lumpy along there.
And yeah, and that'll also be in conjunction with, I think, the transit exchange area as well.
That's probably our worst piece of road in town right now.
Yeah.
Is it subsiding? Because it's just like a washboard. Is it this subsurface? Is that?
It was the fire hydrant that was hit, right?
Yeah, it got hit, so there was quite a wash through, so yeah, we'll have to do some subsurface work for sure, yeah.
So just out of curiosity, number 63, the Robb Avenue reconstruction, is that going to be similar to what we did on the other two sections, Rob, or is that just resurfacing? Because that seems like an awful lot for just resurfacing.
Seems a little close to home.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I'm just wondering, because what you did on Robb Avenue on the other two sections looks really good, and I can see that beautification on that part of Robb being...
Yeah, but the section on Robb Road that we just did is kind of, it's similar to our new cross sections that we're putting in. So this upgrade that you see for the 1.1 million is sidewalk and resurfacing.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll go to that extent. We'll just get that engineering design and see what the impact's going to be. If we can maintain the existing sidewalk on one side, what does that look like? So we'll take all that into...
Yeah, similar to the other side. I don't think you need a sidewalk on the other side. But it was nice adding those trees that you did, the replacement. But on that section of Robb, it would be nice to have the trees in there too. But that is close to home, and I just thought I'd ask since we were right there.
It is a reconstruction, I guess, as opposed to just the resurfacing that the others are.
Okay, so we're kind of bouncing around here a bit. But
No, I didn't mean to take that, sorry.
That's all right. So where are we at here? Kind of lost. I guess there's obviously some highlighted items there that are new and not replacements. For example, well, actually, before we get to that, the heavy-duty vehicles, that's brought forward, I guess, for a total of $610,000. Maybe just what that is all about.
I can speak to that initially and then give it to Shelley. One of the items, the Volvo loader that was scheduled for $250,000 in 2017, the loader didn't arrive, and so it was rolled over to 2018, and that is $250,000 of the $610 is money carried over from last year. We aligned it up with the year in which we received the asset, and then the other two, Shelley can speak to the other two items in there.
Yeah, the other majority of the cost, $250,000, is the replacing our 2008 sweeper.
Row 17, item 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's part of the 610, and then another piece of equipment is a new roller as well for $100,000. So the total of those three items is $610,000.
Okay.
I item 22 is the Rodello traffic circle, and so you just got a 1 there. Is that because we just put it on?
No money
Thought about it,
for
Yeah.
that one is it's going to require other sources of money, the developers' costs, and until that's nailed down, I took the dollars out. There was no point putting in unless we had the source of funds, and that's through the developer
You left
contributions.
it in to keep it on top.
So you know, yeah, so we're talking about it, but the numbers are taken out. It's not a budget.
And
Okay.
we're ready for a grant.
We'll look for grants. We got a grant writer working for us now, so.
Second, ratio almost wrong.
So in the, I mean, I've been looking at 2018, I know you guys are looking at other pages and so on with different years. Is there anything that council wants to ask questions about the 2018 page? And then maybe we can focus on other years after that.
For the 122, the new item, the telephone system, and it just looks like a place marker of 1.
Yeah.
Is that
In the finance and the IT, when we look at the capital network and telephones, if we move to the fiber optics, the rec center does not need to go out and buy their own telephone system. We would be, it's actually budgeted up on item number 2. Line number 2 is where the phone system is for all the upgrades of all the phones in all the departments. However, if we don't do the fiber optic program up in number 2, there's a $30,000 approximate provision to kick into line number 122, where the rec center goes off and buys their own phone system. But hopefully the fiber optic program will work, and we won't have to have departments buying their own systems.
So line number 95 for 2018, you got 120 for the rec center perimeter drains. Is that the old section, or is that to fix some of the problems that you were experiencing? There was water that was flowing. Is that
I think this is Al's area. It's in his notes.
I can speak to that, Clive.
Okay.
We've got an ongoing leak or water kind of surfacing up in the gymnasium. And we're still unsure as to where that water source is coming from, whether it's an actual underground spring or whether it has to do with the broken water main that we're not aware of. So Public Works is still involved in searching for perhaps a water leak. That section was built without perimeter drains.
the old section?
So before we go ahead and spend the money on perimeter drains, we want to see if we can find a problem.
Right.
All right, anything else on the 2018 page? Note there are things like bringing forward the Night Road Storm, the replacement, of course, of the Harborwood Playground. That's, for people that don't recall, that's over in what used to be called Titan Park. It's Harborwood now. Pickleball courts, of course, we talked about. The Mac Lane Pavilion, of course, we talked about. Subject to the outcome of the court process. And White Homes Pavilion, I believe we've talked about that before as well.
Can you remind me on number 127 what HPIC-1A Drive in Cambridge is? 500
Water line.
Is that the water? It's underwater.
Big water line into part of the regional district system, is it not?
Yeah, it's just the HP is the high pressure.
Oh, high pressure.
And it was identified from our water study. Yeah, most of the water main upgrades and design that we have is all projects that were identified in our water study that we done in 2000.
That was the one we were hoping at some point possibly have a right of way through there for pedestrian and cyclists.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
Subject to the farmers.
I just have a question about the water meters, 131. Is it, the 100,000 there, is that just to install water meters as we're replacing roads and so on?
It also, I think, I'll let you speak because that's a direct question.
Yeah,
Shall I
the
just-
majority of it is, but we've added more to that.
Okay. Well, I'll start it. So basically, there are, as as new roads and we have new service lines that people can connect, there's water meters going on, but this is just specifically going out where we're putting in water meters. Usually in the fall, I believe, is the time, fall through winter is a good time for them to go in. I think you were giving me a number of $700, is that correct, for installation? And they can do a considerable number of water meter installations in a day. And so if they start in the fall, the weather's not so good for other works, they can be doing water meter installations. And what I understand from Brett and those involved is as soon as they hook up a water meter, immediately they know if there's a leak going on in that property, and they bang on the door and they can say, we've got a leak. They know it right away because your water's turned off, you put the meter in, and then there's this flow that's running. So in order to control the water loss that's occurring, water meters is still the number one, the best way to get a handle on it. You need to be able to measure where the water is being lost in order to control it, and that's a big objective of the town, is to reduce the amount of water loss. So the budget is set at $100,000. I believe it's set $100,000 over the next number of years, and it's just to get more water meters into the system. It also has a huge benefit in the finance, the billing and all that we come maybe closer to one system. For billing people on a meter rate, as opposed to we have multiple systems right now for billing, which is complex to manage.
And confusing sometimes.
Yeah, I think so, very much. We can.
And then there was a communication piece also attached to the water meter program now?
There is, yes. One piece is as new meters go in, we have drafted, a lot of this hasn't hit the ground out there, but there is a drafted letter for when a new meter is put onto a property to let them know that you have a meter and the benefits of that and how that helps in the town saving water, and you can now go onto the website and you can look up your consumption and so forth, so there's a piece around that.
Perfect.
But it's happening.
I think that when we get the funding straight away for the new treatment plant, depending on what the province does, they probably put a caveat on there that you have to be metered in order to get that grant money, which will greatly help all of this nonsense that we have with all these tiered systems and all the way it's done.
Huge, yeah.
Over half of our connections currently are metered.
Yes, about half, yeah. We're about halfway.
I don't like talking about water meters so close to the election.
Exactly.
It hurt a few years ago.
The province will probably, like we're looking for about $55 million worth of funding, and when they write a check that big, they usually say, by the way, here's the conditions. Typically, that's been a condition on a water.
Makes sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's it for the capital. Just going to conclude with a couple other comments. Or is there any other questions on capital?
So aside from just the identified and special projects, the money to look at a new town hall at some point in 2021, there's no actual capital allowances beyond that?
No, not for capital, no. Nothing beyond 2022 is the last year of this capital plan. It's just a medium-term financial plan.
And from, I guess, looking at all these different projects, there's obviously not one that is of the order of magnitude like we had a couple years ago with the Public Works and Parks buildings, where we were spending $4 million and borrowing against our reserves and so on. Are there any projects in this 5-year plan that you look at that consideration again as we pay back ourselves? And of course, we'll be debt-free later this year. Gives us some flexibility, but is there any major projects that you see us borrowing either against ourselves or going to MFA?
Not right at this time. Some of the traffic circles, the ones that we put in at $1, that we would need funding with developers and grants, and there could be some interim financing perhaps in those regards, but there's not built into this this budget to go and be borrowing.
But borrowing from ourselves could be an option if we choose to go for a new city hall, for example.
That would be definitely part of the plan, is to use our own reserves and repay the reserves.
What's the age of our city, our town hall? Maybe back in the 40s?
I'm thinking of it.
1960.
60?
It's a very good year.
So
But that building and I are both feeling the pain.
Road's looking old.
And I remember in 1990, there was a model of what the new building would look like. And that was-
Oh, yes.
That cost council, if almost everybody on it.
2002 election has turned on that quite a bit.
Yes, I remember that.
Your Worship, as a,
Sorry, go ahead.
just as a wrap-up to what I have here, the next three committee of the whole meetings in the middle of March, end of March. The first one will be an update. The second one will be, hopefully, we'll be ready with all the reconciliations done in 2017 to provide the Schedule A, which is the one-page summary, and then we can talk more about the overall budget and that 2.43% tax increase that we're holding at. The April 11th meeting, the third meeting, we will, for that meeting, have received the revised BC assessment roll. March 31st it comes out. And so at the April 11th meeting, we could actually be in a position to set the tax rate, to lock it in. We would have all the information we need to lock it in and work really well. Those two meetings will be to discuss it. So just, that's the forecast for the
So that's the timeline that you've outlined on page 9.
Yes, as well.
All right, so the next three committees of the whole will be dealing with updates on this, and of course, this is presented on the basis that you may have other questions as you go through it later on. And through the CAO, I guess, address any questions in between meetings, otherwise come
I just
to
had
the
a
next.
quick question. On line 76 of page 2, on bus shelters, it's just got 25,000 down in 2021. We would be responsible, would we not, for putting up the bus shelter where the bus transfer point is going to be
Exchange it.
exchanged? Would we not want something prior to 21?
We budgeted something for that, haven't we?
Not for the, Michael kind of spoke to it a little bit in his presentation where the bus exchange is going to go. They're not planning on putting in a bus shelter at this point. BC Transit's going to have to work with the mall owners to get an SRW because at the back of the sidewalk is basically our road dedication.
Okay.
So I think temporarily they weren't looking at putting a bus shelter, but that will be coming.
So it takes a while.
Yeah.
It just seems like that's a place
Yeah.
as soon as possible because there will be people waiting there.
So in the special projects, you've got, back on the original page, special projects, you have 25,000 for transportation, repair, and restoration dash transit. Is that related to that?
Yeah, so that has to do with the transit upgrades, the few bus stops moving, putting in
Okay.
some new ones. BC Transit, as part of the review of the routing, looked at the turning radius on Comox Avenue to turn onto Port Transit. Because that was another reason why the L4 side was sort of not chosen as well, is that we would, on top of that $25,000, we would have been looking at $85,000 for improvements for sidewalks. Removing the letdowns. But with the review of that left-hand turning, we had to basically remove some of the line painting as well. So we had Watt Consulting, a transportation consulting firm, also look at the left-hand turning bay. So the intent is, when the exchange goes in, is to remove the left-hand turning bays. So that will increase the turning radiuses for the buses, and it's also identified as improving some safety at those, at the four-way stops, because it can get some confusion happening when there's a car turning and you're going straight. So what's the transportation consultant's recommendation is that that can have an impact. And we also, at the same time, looked at the four-way stop at Church and Comox Avenue as well to see what that left-hand turn would look like and what that impact would be. And their recommendation is that could be removed as well. And the impact that would have is about additional 3 second wait. So for the improved safety, they recommended that removal of that left-hand turn bay as well.
Will that come to council then, specifically, or what's the plan in terms of public engagement?
We wanted to do it at the May Capital Projects Open House
show them what,
have a display on this is what our proposal will be.
okay, so it's not something that's going to happen. You know what they say about change?
Progress without it is Comox.
Yes.
So the history on the left-hand turning base was that they were put in, because apparently they were intending that there would be lights there at those intersections. Yeah, which is not recommended. Four-way stop is a preferred
Right.
recommendation.
Well, yeah, that'll definitely require some public engagement. Refer to that in a minute.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and Council, for taking the time to think about these items.
Thank you for your.
Thank
Just
you.
before
Wonderful.
I go, I do have one other question, it's not directly related to this. Do we have a sense of the impact of the LSP piece for us, for our
Yes,
budget?
I do. I guess that word's out about that. There's an increase, and there's another increase. So we have a great decrease in 2018 from medical services plan you're speaking of. There's a decrease to us in costs there, and followed by MSP tax in 2019, where they're going to not only claw back all the savings we made in 2018, they're going to get it back in 2019, and it's going to be a large increase. So I'm planning already in the benefits side. I think it worked out to a 0.7% increase in the benefits. Our cost in our employee benefits is going to be impacted. So it's been calculated into the budget. That is on the true operating side that I haven't presented here, but also on the true operating side are a number of cost reductions that are also being introduced there too, to offset some of those cost increases. So that'll be part of the updates that I bring to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Clive, I just want to say how easy this is to follow, and what a good job. Like, this is super simple.
Thank you.
And for a guy like me, I mean, I struggle with budgets really hard, but this is really easy to follow.
Awesome.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so motion to receive this presentation and the update on the budget timeline.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carried. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll come back to an update on that. Now, as far as the agenda goes, we had a number of items for, I guess, specific to, that were referred to the budget process for consideration. So we have the gravel sidewalk along the frontage of the Blackfin Pub to be replaced with a concrete sidewalk in our financial plan. Is that factored into the plan? Yep.
It's just left as is right now, so Beaufort is for construction 2022 and Comox Avenue 2020.
So short answer is there's no allowance for it?
Not for this year.
Oh, for this year, but it's in the plan.
We've included it in the plan for design in 2021, when we're doing all of Beaufort, and construction in 2022.
That makes sense.
So unless council wishes to move it forward, that's where it is. I mean, I guess the resolution is consistent with what you just said. So we're not necessarily, I mean, if it's factored in the budget, it's just a question of timing.
Yeah.
And so,
In the estimation of our engineering, that there's no safety issues.
well, there's always going to be safety issues, whatever projects you consider or not consider doing. But I guess we had one letter from one person saying they had one incident. You know, if we had 10 letters with 10 incidents, that might be a different issue. Is there any need to move it up? Well, of course, we'd like to move up all these projects, but we have to do them in somewhat of a order of time. It doesn't make sense doing it as part of another project.
You may pull it up, and you may put it down and then rip it all back up 2 years later.
Not that that's not a concern, but it's got to be factored into what we can do. Second one is the south side of Comox Avenue between Anderton and Ellis.
And that's in the plan.
That's in the plan now?
That's the plan for, sorry.
That's what I asked about.
Right, and what's the timing again?
2022.
Design 2019,
Yeah.
construction 2020.
So, you know, again, timing, it's there. I guess we could let the people know once the budget's approved, that's where it's at.
And there isn't any possibility to bring it forward, so at least we do the planning this year. I mean, it's a terrible stretch. I'm very familiar with it because my father lived there, and we were were trying to get him a mobility aid, and there's just no way he could have used it because it's a death trap. You know, once you get to the traffic lights, you can get over to the other side of the road and you've got freedom. But the people on that side...
Wasn't he further west of Anderton? Because this is between Anderton and Ellis.
He was next to the United Church.
Yeah, so this area is between Anderton and
And
Ellis.
so it wouldn't even cover that stretch. Okay, because that's a very difficult piece there too.
Yeah, it's a challenge with the way that the roads have built over time, and you know, this is talking about that side of Comox, or that part of Comox Avenue between Anderton and Ellis.
I know the person who wrote this, you know, they're feeling pretty desperate just that they have lived there for decades and they want to age at home, and
Sure.
they're now finding that their mobility is seriously challenged. So,
Well, I guess perhaps with grant opportunities, if they present themselves, that could expedite. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one.
And the other side of it is I think that we are going to be challenged in terms of completing the projects that we have on our list this year. I mean, we're already hearing from the engineering firms that they're basically booked up for the year in terms of all the work that they have. So adding work on top of that will result in A, us paying more for the work, because if we really want it, they're going to be able to charge us what they want, and B, you're not looking at getting it until probably later in the year anyway. So, you know, at this stage, for the advancement or knowing what it's going to cost us a year in advance, I'm not sure if it's all that worth to proceed.
And in terms of grants, timing for the federal infrastructure grant with the provincial shares of those grants coming, and you would know through the sewer and water discussions that a lot of that is back-end loaded to 21, 22. So the likelihood of getting anything, we're allocating fully, aren't we, not carrying gas tax money?
I believe so.
So design 2019, construction 2020.
can we add to the letter that if there is grant money available, and can we a very long shot?
Well, and then it does come down to capacity. I mean, I think we found last year when we had somewhere, well, $7 million worth of work being done, that not all of it got done. Look how many green forwards we have. So, I mean, you like to do everything, but you do run into capacity issues, not just financially, but just human resources. I think we can advise them where we're at, and as with anything, things get moved up. If they can be done and there's money to pay for them, great, but you know, we also have to factor in the level of service that we are providing. We're not going to be able to satisfy every need. There's just no way. But you know, if they did take the trouble to write a letter, we'll certainly write them back. Once we've gone through the budgets here over the next couple of months. So on that, next one is the Potlatch 6767. The latest I heard is that Courtney Council is still deliberating on whether they're going to fund the amount of $10,000 of the casino revenues, which of course generate here with the whole valley. But beyond that, I haven't heard anything more. And I think they did provide, I think it's attached, a summary of the budgets.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that too, that I didn't notice the contribution from the Community Justice Center because it was voted at $22,000 from restorative justice that was for the school division, 71, and they're reallocating it to this. And so that's the significant $22,000. It was $2,000 and then there's a $40,000 budget for restorative justice that they were able to take $20,000 from and put it into this because it was going to be gone by the end of March, and they were able to tie the restorative justice into this, and so it was approved. So that is a $22,000 donation that we've made from the community.
Are we paying into restorative justice? Heck, are they getting that kind of money?
Well, this was grant money they received.
But yes, you are paying.
Yeah, it's all tax dollars, no matter which way you look at it. But I didn't notice it on here.
So would that then cover the total request?
No. Well, the last I had heard, because they made the presentation to us at the Community Justice Center, that it was 67,000. I see it's up to 100,000 now. So I'm not sure. I didn't see a budget before. It was a number, so I'm not sure where the numbers were coming from.
Yeah, and as you know, we contribute 60,000 a year currently to cultural activities within our community, through the museum, through nautical days and so on. Of course, nautical days is asking for more. At this point, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that we need to make a specific contribution towards that, and maybe wait and see what Courtney does with the casino money. But
Yeah, I agree.
that, and maybe we can table it till that's determined. I'm a little concerned about their budget in terms of the dollars being involved, and it looks like a lot of people are being paid for different things, and it's $100,000 for that. It seems like a lot of money. But
Yeah.
well, I know.
Well, I'm always a little troubled when when people come looking for grants and aid from us anyway, because really they're asking us to decide what the members of our community would put their money to, and for each neighborhood you go down, you get 5 different answers. And so I really just don't see that it's our place to do that. I think it's why we got rid of grants and aid in the first place, so that we wouldn't get ourselves into these kinds of things. So I just always have a hard time with this.
Yeah, and the city of Courtney has a challenge too, because they set a deadline for the casino money applications some time ago, and this one is coming after that fact. So they have that issue as well to deal with.
I see it a little differently. I guess I should say this, but I think it's an opportunity for our town, and I see this request as different than other grant and aid requests, and I understand our general philosophy for grant and aids and support it. But in the spirit of reconciliation that the federal government has proposed, and that it's an opportunity for our town to demonstrate that that's important, and that injustices and what has happened in the past is that we want to step forward and suggest that there were injustices and this is wrong. And this may be an opportunity to address that strongly from the town of Comox. That perhaps it doesn't have to be this particular thing, but at one point I'd sure like to say that on behalf of the town, we would like to demonstrate a step in reconciliation in this regard.
Yeah, that's always a good point, but this may not necessarily be the way to do it. And perhaps if we are able to have a meeting with KFN in the near future, this is not a KFN project, by the way. So that you got to be very clear on that. This is a project put on by a group of people, but it's not officially affiliated with KFN. So this may or may not be an appropriate way to do it. So I caution you in that regard, and maybe it's worth another discussion. We may have other ways and means of doing something within our community as well, within the town of Comox. This is it's obviously a community-wide project, but we've focused our cultural spending on town of Comox and what's the benefit to our community and yes, our neighbors as well. But so those things all have to be considered, and there's other ways that things can be achieved without necessarily supporting one-off events.
So thank you for hearing my point, though, that the town hopefully will consider some form of demonstration of reconciliation with our First Nations neighbors. And maybe it's not this one, but at some point.
Well, and I think we do collectively, for example, through the Community Justice Center, we're all part of the Community Justice Center, and money goes into that. And that was a significant contribution that was made. In fact, they came to us for $2,000, and it was agreed to add the $20,000 on to that. So I think as a community, we've all come together because the Community Justice Center represents the three communities and the regional district. So there, I totally agree with you. But we, just as we said earlier, there's only so much money we can go around. And the next thing we're going to be talking about is the nautical days, something that represents the town of Comox, and we need to help everybody.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to take this out of it's not in the budget to start with. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to put it on the the table, if you will, for consideration. We don't have to decide tonight unless, of course, you want to. And, you know, it can come back in perhaps at a later date once we know what other things we're doing. But and the amounts involved aren't huge, but because we have a no grants and aid policy, we have to be very careful in this regard.
And I'm glad we are keeping it alive, and I have to concur with Councillor McKinnon. Even if it's a smaller sum than is being asked for as a measure of goodwill, and also to explore whether there is any in-kind donations we can give. I know it looks like their events are focused on Courtney, but if there is opportunity to use space here that we can offer, that might be
I believe Ted was mentioning the new recreation manager was going to be reaching out to KFN to see if we can offer any assistance on, not necessarily this event, but working with them.
That's correct.
So, you know, we are reaching out that way as well.
wonderful. Thank you very much.
I mean, personally, I'd rather see us do arguably more meaningful things in terms of reconciliation, in terms of building capacity, understanding with our staff, our council, their council. This is perhaps a great event. I have concerns about the budget around it. I have concerns about what it's reflective of, whether it's reflective of the event or just individuals. And again, anytime you're dealing with a group of people, you have to wonder what's behind it. So I don't really want to have a discussion, perhaps at the council level, as to what they'd like to see. We had to deal with this issue last year with the travel journeys, right? Out of the blue, this request doesn't come through KFN, comes through one person trying madly to organize an event. And thankfully, the community came on board through Rotary and other groups to support that. But you know, here we are being asked for money. And again, are we taking money from our taxpayers to fund a cause or an event that maybe not all our taxpayers, but most of them wouldn't even want to participate in? So, you know, that's the challenge. Not specific to this request, but to those kinds of requests. We all support the art gallery too, by the way, as part of our cultural funding. We give an annual stipend to them too. So. All right, so we'll leave that for the time being, and then Nautical Days is one that they've requested. They've provided their budget for that now, looking for roughly under $10,000 in funding. We could provide direction to staff in that regard, or again, leave it for further consideration.
Well, I have to say, I like the fact that they brought the budget before they had the event, as opposed to in the past, where it's got the bill later.
I think this could be more of a time-sensitive thing for them, that they, and this $10,000 is on top of the $25,000 that they get. So I'd move that we go ahead and approve this request. This is the 60th anniversary. It's
I'll second that.
It's a big event for us.
All right, so that'll be a recommendation to council, obviously, from committee of the whole. So anything else you want to say on that?
No.
Okay.
And it would be a 1 year
Yes.
only. I think that's good to clarify that, because sometimes you get budget creep.
I was just wondering whether a couple of councillors could maybe volunteer to be clowns instead, and then say if you...
I do that every day.
Volunteer, I think it's every Wednesday. All right, cheap at twice the price. Okay.
So something else that came up at the regional board that kind of hinged on this was the Olympians from around here, and the discussion we had before, and so they were trying to figure out, so the overall take was that we should all get together and figure out what we're going to do.
We will be.
But something that did come up was that Nautical Days seemed like a pretty good time and place to do something like that, so this could fall nicely into that.
Anything else on that motion to approve that request?
I'd just like to make a comment, if I may. Although music obviously adds a lot to the festivities of that weekend, it seems to me that the Walk of Achievement is being emphasized more than our nautical. The music, etc. This is a nautical 60 years celebration, and lots of music is wonderful. But where is the additional nautical that's going to recognize our 60 years?
Okay, That's okay, so when you're
And do whatever
referring,
floats your boat.
you're referring to John Mang's talk about they're going to honor some musicians and so on.
Yes, well, the Walk of Achievement is emphasized in their letter too. I think.
Yes, okay. Yeah, okay, well, there's that part of it. So what are you referring to?
I think the $10,000 that they're looking for though is for musicians
Correct.
that they're looking at and
Yes.
having perform. And why spend money on musicians? I think that's partially a reflection of who you have coordinating the festival.
Oh, understandable,
And-
yeah.
When you get a different coordinator, you're going to get a different focus. So
I just
I
think
think-
this is a nautical days, and
Yeah.
and from what I see, according to what they have printed here, there is no reference to nautical per se. Is
Well, I
there?
think they're still going to be throwing fish.
Oh, well,
Well, it's all part and parcel because you bring the people down to listen to the music, and this here is going to be more of a centered on local musicians who've done well, and they're going to have them come together on stage and throughout the weekend. So that in itself brings people down to participate in various activities.
Yeah, it's
I think it all has-
entertainment focus. I mean, there will still be the dragon boat races and the sailing races. And Lord help us, what do they call that? The gauntlet?
The gauntlet.
It's not a bad focus if you're looking at recognition of local talent and perhaps tying in the recognition of the Olympic athletes the same weekend. So that you are focusing on local. So
Oh, yes, I don't argue that point at all. It's just,
But yeah, I get
something a little more nautical.
They could sing "Row, row, row your boat."
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, absolutely.
We have those fun facts.
Very snowy in Margaret.
If I could just make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really struggling with this. I think Sue and John have done a terrific job, and I understand their focus on entertainment because that is something they know a lot about. But I think we have to realize that everything we do to improve and draw people to nautical days is impacting Filbert Festival. And the first thing we did was put up all the craft booths, and now we're talking about having more entertainment. So we're almost robbing Peter to pay Paul, because although we as a town don't have quite the same involvement with the Filbert Festival, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot when we don't support that one in the same way.
Well, that's not a new issue, really. That's something that's been discussed over the years. Two different festivals, two different focuses, different ways we support both festivals. We do a lot of in-kind, obviously, gardeners and other things going on there within the Filbert Park. To me, it's make the pie bigger. Everyone succeeds. And, the more people coming to the community to do whatever, wherever, work together. It's not intended to cutting each other's turf, and the fact that shuttles were being done last year for both festivals at the same time, that's good. And I know they talked about different weekends, but if we can't make this bigger and better and have everyone succeed, then we shouldn't be supporting either of them. But I think we support both of them to a large extent.
Well, it's just something to keep in mind, because I know for some time, we've had many meetings to say, we get rid of the craft stuff here, and we realize, hey, we don't want to, we can't really. But, to now add a big entertainment one, and I can see for the 60th, we want to do something special, and I think that's great, but I'm just raising it as an issue, because I know it's going to come up.
Well, for the monies involved to bring these musicians in, it would arguably pale by comparison to the money being spent to bring your musical acts that the Filbert Festival brings in. It's, again, a total different level, right? And you're bringing-
Absolutely,
yeah.
but if, and I mean, they are different events. You're family friendly, you're dog friendly, you're free, you're all kinds of things down here.
Yeah.
But there's only so many hours in the day, and
Yeah.
I'm down here, I'm not over there. So I just bring it up
Yeah, no.
as an issue.
It's not an issue that's going to go away, but again, hopefully over time people see the bigger benefit of having two great festivals.
I think it's a great weekend. I think both events are great. I think it's good to bounce back and forth.
Well, I do too. It's just that it is the only significant fundraiser that Filbert does
Sure.
for their ongoing
Understood.
operating. So when they don't make the money that they anticipate down there, it is a big issue for them.
Councilor McKinnon.
Just, sorry, back to the Olympians for a second. Councillor Grant's point is that this may be helpful is that availability of them at that time of year, you state your question, what's the answer is sooner rather than later, if anything would be planned. My wife is friends with the mother of one of the Olympic athletes, and I've sent an email to see if they would be available. Last year, for instance, in August around that time, they were in Chile training for the Olympics. They go train in summertime, and so there's no sense in us going any further. On the other hand, what a wonderful addition that would be to our nautical days, to have our Olympians somehow participate in festivities here, maybe even a photo opportunity for the public, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But until we get that answer, and I've sent an email to one of them.
Well, I'd encourage you to work through John Watson and his crew so that we're not all sending emails out to different people. I have fielded numerous inquiries, exchanged numerous emails with people at Vancouver Mountain Sports Center, Mount Washington, CVEDS, now Chamber of Commerce is going to get involved. Of course, everyone wants to have a parade like tomorrow. Well, that's not practical. What's going to happen is VMIS will be having a board meeting in March. They will discuss an appropriate recognition. They don't have any money to put on an event like that. Of course, any money they raise, they want to go to the scholarships that they provide. So, and of course, we don't have, quote, a parade coordinator, or neither is Courtney or Cumberland or the regional district. So it may be an event that CVEDS will put on in collaboration with the business community. Whether it happens at one of our parades, I don't know. I've just told people that let this process unfold. We have to wait till the Paralympics are over, because there's a number of people from here involved in that. So sometime in March, towards April, you'll hear more. And again, I wouldn't suggest necessarily it's wrong to send emails to people, but keep in mind also these athletes also have agents. You've got to deal with their agents in terms of their availability. And it won't be a freebie to bring them over here if they're coming from other places. Like Cassie Sharp doesn't live here anymore. Her parents live in Agassiz.
Very good points. Having said that, still the vision of our Olympic athletes and our Nautical Days Parade.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Being acknowledged here, and then perhaps acknowledged further with our mayor's luncheon would be wonderful.
Yeah, no, it'd be great if it could all work out. Just keep in mind that it's a work in progress, and that other agencies more in tune and in touch with those people really sort of know what's best for everyone.
Point heard and point noted.
Yeah. All right, anything further? Do we vote on that funding? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. So that's basically it. We'll bring back those other items that we didn't specifically, I guess maybe potlatch 67, 67, the other two we've addressed. No other items coming before council. Motion to adjourn. In favor?